Well, we start in Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in crisis talks with members of his coalition. Local media say he was planning to suspend a controversial judicial overhaul. An announcement was expected in the past hour, but that has now been delayed. His far-right coalition partner, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has urged him not to back down. Earlier, Israel's president called on the government to stop the plan immediately. The proposed legislation has sparked weeks of anti-government protests. Natasha Ganaim joins us now live from West Jerusalem, and it's been an incredibly chaotic morning. Netanyahu was due to speak. It's been postponed. There's strikes, protests. What's the latest?
We're in a country in crisis, an unprecedented crisis at that. I am near the Knesset, and as you'll see, people are arriving, protesters, people opposed to this judicial overhaul for what's expected to be a large demonstration near the Knesset. We're also told later today that members of, supporters rather, of the government and in favor of this judicial overhaul are also expected to protest here near the Knesset. It is unclear if that is going to create clashes and difficulties on the ground. What we do know is this: the conversation has shifted. Since Netanyahu ousted Defence Minister Yoav Gallant, the conversation has shifted from hitting the pause button on this judicial overhaul package, one of the most controversial policies in Israeli history, to now some people calling for the removal of Prime Minister Netanyahu. You have a former Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, calling for Netanyahu's removal. You have a member of the governing coalition, Avadar Lieberman, saying that it is time for Netanyahu to step down and for another prime minister to be selected within the Likud party. So what you're seeing are fissures within the governing coalition and a deepening of the divisions. Within the coalition, we started to see early this morning, after the news broke, concerned senior members of the governing coalition saying that they were in complete shock that Netanyahu had fired Gallant, that they thought that Netanyahu had made a strategic mistake. And now you're hearing that some people within the governing coalition believe that this judicial overhaul needs to be suspended. And that's what the removal of Gallant was allegedly about. Gallant had said, for the sake of the country, for preserving national security, hit the pause button on this judicial overhaul for about a month, until after the Passover holiday and the Independence holiday ends in late April. But there's simply been no room for compromise or negotiation with Netanyahu and his governing coalition, and that has brought us here to this moment. As you said, he was expected, Prime Minister Netanyahu was expected to make a statement to the country. That has been also paused at the moment. The only thing we have heard from Netanyahu so far was a tweet early this morning saying that we must stand up strongly against the refusals.
We've also heard that the airport has been closed. Departures from the airport have been halted. What more can you tell us about that and those strikes, I guess, going to escalate further to other industries?
Well, you mentioned the airport coming to operations there coming to a standstill at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. This should give you an indication, again, of the fissures within the supporters of the government. The head of the union at the airport is actually a Likud member. We have a strike today across many sectors of Israeli society. There are strikes among high school, middle school, university students. There are doctors that have called in sick. So as you can see, this has impacted Israelis greatly. They have been, for months, making their voices heard, those who oppose this judicial overhaul, saying that they believe that it's a reach, an overreach by Netanyahu's government. They're concerned that by giving, this is what the judicial reform would include, by giving more power to the government to select Supreme Court justices and to override decisions that the Supreme Court makes regarding legislation, that it will remove a necessary check on power for a branch of government. And I should mention, as we're waiting for Netanyahu to speak, as rumors are swirling that perhaps he's ready to compromise and hit the pause button on this judicial reform, the Constitution, Law and Justice Committee met this morning and they did approve a law that would now allow the government to have an ultimate say in who sits on the Supreme Court.
OK, thank you very much for that update. That's Natasha Ghanem for us in West Jerusalem. We'll no doubt be talking to you throughout the day there. Well, let's bring in political analyst Akiva Alder. He joins us from Tel Aviv. Thank you again for being on Al Jazeera. It's been described as a crisis in Israel. How would you describe what's gone on in the last few hours there?
Actually, this is a process that started since Netanyahu's decision to ousted Gallant, who is one of the members of his political family. He's not just another member of Knesset or another minister. He was there standing behind Netanyahu in court with a mask during the Corona period, supporting him when he made those very controversial statements against the Israeli judiciary. And you cannot accuse him of being so-called anarchist. And I can say that Netanyahu's career has been built up always on both fear and hatred of the other. And now Netanyahu became the other. And you don't see his supporters in the streets. He is very lonely. He is losing his party, and he will probably lose his coalition because he's now cornered by his right-wing, extra-large right-wing party, Ben Gvir, former terrorist, and he will have to choose between keeping the Likud together or keeping the coalition together. And what we used to say, unprecedented situation, I think even unprecedented is not what it used to be in Israel.
What do you think he will choose? You say he's got a choice. Which way do you think he is going to go when he eventually does make an announcement at some point today?
Well, what he could do a few days ago to agree on a timeout and sit down with the opposition and go to the president and discuss how to gain some more time, this is irrelevant today. Now they are, the opposition and the people in the streets are demanding to shelve all the legislation that are now in the pipeline. So he may have to lose not only Ben Gvir and the radical religious right, but also his Minister of Justice. I am not sure if he knows what's the best for him, because we have to keep in mind that the court is also waiting for him. And if he doesn't pass those personal legislation amendments of the law, the judges and the Supreme Court that will eventually have to deal with his case, and that he wanted to change and put in his supporters, people from the radical right, this is not going to happen. So I think that he has to think about his place in history right now. If he will be remembered as Israel's Putin, or a prime minister who brought us the Abraham Accords and is a very intelligent human being, and I really feel sorry for him.
OK, thank you. We'll have to leave it there, but no doubt we'll be speaking to you throughout the day as well. That's political analyst Akiva Alder from Tel Aviv. Thank you.